1, roll 'em.
Felix de Azar described a rather interesting plant he found while exploring Paraguay in the 1800s. When it is boiled in fat or oil, the grains burst without becoming detached, and there results a superb bouquet fit to adorn a lady's hair at night without anyone knowing what it was. I have often eaten these grains and found them very good. Now you're probably wondering, what could possibly be eaten and used as a decoration? A pumpkin? But even then, you don't exactly just walk down the street snacking on a pumpkin. That's just weird. They're also a little heavy to walk around with one on top of your head for multiple hours straight. And they don't explode until a teenager takes one and smashes it on the street. Sadly, I can't demonstrate that one indoors. No, the food Zara is actually describing is popcorn. We eat it all the time, yet do any of us really know why it pops? How does it go from looking like this to looking like this? Well, these are all things you will know by the end of this speech. Let's start with the history of popcorn. The earliest popcorn that we know of was found in 1948 by Herbert Dick and Earl Smith in the Bat Cave, which is located in the state of New Mexico. These kernels were suspected to have been popped individually. Think for a second how long that would take. These kernels were later carbon dated to be 5,600 years old. They were consumed as food, but we also see evidence of early civilizations using popcorn as a decoration. Archaeologists have found funeral urns from 300 AD in Mexico that were carved with a depiction of the maize god, the god of corn, with popcorn adorning his headdress. In the 1800s, we used popcorn as a decoration in the form of popcorn balls, but today we decorate Christmas trees with popcorn and cranberry garlands, like this one. Sadly though, this tradition has begun to obsolesce. Well, maybe not so sadly, because I must have stabbed myself a million times making this little thing. So how did popcorn become so popular? Well, if you trace it all the way back, it actually started with Native Americans. European colonists first adopted popcorn from the indigenous people. They went on to do some weird things, such as eat it sugared for breakfast, like cereal. Don't you wish your mom would let you eat popcorn for breakfast? I was thinking the same thing, until I realized they still ate it with milk. Does it still look delicious? No, I didn't think so. They created an early form of kettle corn as well, cooking popcorn and molasses, a thick gooey substance that is similar to syrup or honey. By the 1800s, popcorn was one of the most popular foods in America, and as a snack, not a cereal. The connection between popcorn and the entertainment industry began with carnivals and circuses, where it was commonly sold. Its popularity increased even more with Charles Creeder's invention of the first mobile popcorn machine. Beginning in 1885, it roamed the streets of Chicago. It was carts like these that first parked themselves right outside the movie theaters, when people waited to go inside. People liked this so much that many theaters bought their own popcorn machines. Many of those that refused went out of business. That's how much people wanted their popcorn. Despite its increasing popularity, popcorn sales declined immensely with the creation of television, as it allowed people to watch movies from home. They didn't need to go to the theater anymore. This turned around in 1981 with the creation of microwave popcorn, at which point home consumption rates skyrocketed by tens of thousands of pounds. While many companies declined during the Great Depression, popcorn sales increased significantly. It was sold at only 5 to 10 cents per bag and was therefore very cheap, so it was one of the only foods that people could afford. Surprisingly enough, a man whose bank failed used his remaining money to buy a mobile popcorn machine. This turned out to be genius because after a few years parked outside a movie theater, he was able to regain 3 of the properties he had lost. A similar increase occurred during World War II, since all of the sugar was sent to the troops. Popcorn became a substitute for dessert. Presently in the United States, we consume more than 15 billion quarts of popcorn every year. This averages out to approximately 47 quarts per person. It is clear that popcorn's popularity has not decreased in the slightest. Now that we know how popcorn became such an integral part of our lives, we will discuss the science behind it and how popcorn is produced. In the US, most of this happens in an area known as the Corn Belt. This is the agricultural area of the US, from Nebraska to Kentucky. Believe it or not, some people take it a step further than devoting 37% of their land to corn. Their entire job is to find the best possible popped outcome of popcorn. According to popcorn.org, just setting up the groundwork for this can take a minimum of 8 years if you do it right. That's dedication. Granted, not everyone is a perfectionist, but those who are first have to isolate the desirable traits of certain plants by inbreeding them. This ensures that all plants maintain their traits exclusively, which makes it a lot easier to select those traits that are considered desirable. This is important to reduce the chances of situations like these. That last one is corn fungus, and I am so sorry that I ever showed it to you. Finally, they cross the plants of the best traits together to get the perfect hybrid. The perfect strain can be different depending on the use of the popcorn. For example, some strains pop to form the mushroom shape, which is round, rough, and sturdy, so it is used for kettle corn since it won't break apart during the candying process. Other strains pop to form the butterfly shape, which is much more random and fragile. This is the most common type of popcorn, the kind sold in movie theaters. Then comes the harvest. The plants are ready to harvest when the stalk and leaves are dead, the kernels are hard, and a black layer has formed between the kernels and the cob. It's starting to sound delicious, right? The black layer means that the kernels are no longer receiving any nutrients from the rest of the plant, and have therefore grown as much as they can. It's not molding. The prime amount of moisture within the kernel is between 16 and 20%. Once the kernels have been harvested, they are stored for 8 to 12 months, or until the moisture level has decreased to 14%, which induces ideal popping. Too much moisture will result in the popped corn being gummy, while too little moisture could prevent the kernel from popping at all. It's finally time to answer that burning question of why popcorn kernels pop. It's because of their anatomy, but you probably guessed that. At the very center of the kernel is the embryo, which is what allows the seed to grow if planted. Surrounding it are 2 layers of starch, which feed the embryo and keep it alive, until germination occurs and it is able to receive nutrients from the outside world. Protecting the whole bundle is the hull, which is the hard exterior of the kernel. But what does this have to do with the fact that the popcorn explodes? Well, at the very center of the kernel, near the embryo, is a tiny drop of water. The size of this droplet is referred to as the moisture level. Once the internal temperature falls between 400 and 600 degrees Fahrenheit, the water turns to steam, which puts pressure on the hull until it is too much to bear. The hull ruptures, and the kernel is practically turned inside out. The white fluffy stuff is the starch and embryo, while the dark part in the center is the remains of the hull. At this point, you know much more about the science and history of popcorn than you could ever possibly want to know. So I'll close this off with a rather interesting fact. The largest popcorn ball was created by the Noble popcorn plant on June 18th of 2016 in Sac City, Iowa. They had lost the record 3 years prior and regained it using 5 tons of kernels to create a 9,370-pound ball with a 12-foot diameter. There was no duct tape involved. It was held together by sugar, syrup, and the care of the hundreds of people who volunteered to help. This just goes to show how much we love popcorn and how important it is to our culture today. Thank you.